This is probably one of the most important, consequential gatherings as a group. We're all part of a family. I think we know what that is. We got the right stuff, that's for sure. Tonight we are honored to have Justin Strife and Matthew Scher with Turning Point USA. This is an organization that you either probably know a little bit about, but tonight you're going to learn a lot more. I was honored to get the invitation to go to AmFest in December, thanks to Shane Mitchell, who's an incredible connector. I'm a little bit better than you, but I'm older than you, okay? I'm watching you. Don't get good, okay? Stay the way you are. Don't get too good, right? I went out there, and as soon as I landed in Phoenix, I was just transformed. The whole airport was buzzing. I got to my hotel at the Marriott, it was buzzing, and then I got to the convention center, and it was like I turned a point, okay? Like, I was already on board, but that totally changed my life, and it's amazing how much has happened since December 19th. So we have built this incredible relationship with the leadership of Turning Point. And as many of you know, a lot of people say, oh, Sinan, you've got a great network. You know so many people. Well, it's my job to connect those people with great causes. I was born on September 11th, and Charlie Kirk was assassinated on September 10th. It's a day that none of us will ever forget. I got a degree in public relations, and communications is my strong suit, it's my superpower. And what Charlie was able to do in universities and campuses and among the young generation was to start a conversation, not a debate, but a conversation that's inside all of us. And it's a curiosity that bonds all of us. And as a conservative for 30 years, I've been supporting the conservative movement. This is not just a Democrat versus Republican. I'm not a wild MAGA person. I'm a person that believes in a state that has low taxes, a person who wants to pay for my freedoms, and a person that wants immigration reform in the best interest to national security. So these are the same issues that bond all of us as adults, as parents, as grandparents, and the next generation. And what's astounding is the day before Charlie Kirk was assassinated, there was just a few thousand Turning Point chapters. And within weeks, they had 136,000 applications. And that tells you a chain reaction is happening among our youth. It's not just the college people, it's the ones that are in high school. When I was taking both my children to school today, my 13-year-old, my 10-year-old, we talked about tonight. I talked about how excited I was, and they finished my sentences. And it's not because they're conservatives, it's because they know firsthand what happened to Charlie Kirk. It was their JFK moment. It was their Ronald Reagan moment. It was that moment that we all lived through on 9/11 for them and their generation. They were curious. They were asking me why I was doing this, and I explained it to them. And I'm not telling them to become Republican. I'm not telling them to vote a certain way, but I'm expressing to them what's in my heart and what's in my soul, which is to support this great organization. And since Charlie's death, this organization has grown exponentially, witnessed at AmFest. We were in this incredible room with Speaker Mike Johnson, Governor-elect Vivek Ramaswamy, and all sorts of national figures, both in media as well as elected office. And it was such an honor to have that opportunity. And that's when I knew, when I met Matt, I said, look, we need to engage our network and help you guys with the resource that we have access to. We have founders, venture capitalists, all that want to protect our country. We don't want to go back in time. Could you imagine, we have Gavin Newsom and AOC as the top trending candidates on the Democratic side. Those are our potential leaders. We have a midterm elections, just like that, we could lose all this momentum. Right now, we have the White House, we have the Senate, and we have Congress. And that's God bless America to me, because now we can actually fix some things that are absolutely just breaking the kneecaps of our country, our democracy, our international affairs. And we have a president that is not just on television every day. He's in the Oval Office and he's working. Executive orders left and right. It's his actual signature, it's not an auto pen. And he's got a cabinet of businessmen and women that understand the logic of what they're doing. They're in the best interests of our country, not their own pocketbooks. We have a Congress that's strong and we have a Senate that's strong. And again, this is not a Democrat versus Republican like, oh, I hate those people. This is about protecting what's in the best interest of our country and our national security. And right now we have the trifecta. So what's important, and I speak to Speaker Johnson regularly, and I'm helping Turning Point as well, is to protect the House. We are very vulnerable. In the last 50 presidents, 48 of them in their term as president, it's flopped the other way. So statistically, look at poly markets, it's going to the Democrats. But when I met with Speaker Johnson a few months ago in his office privately, he said he was very bullish for the same reasons I believe. the Democrats don't have a message, they don't have a messenger, and they don't have the Charlie Kirk effect. And those are the things that we're really counting on. I do also believe that California has a chance to turn Republican. I'm helping Steve Hilton with his campaign. He was the only one in that debate that was up there as a Republican. And it was wild because the whole audience was filled with Democrats and they were just throwing an egg on his face. Anything he was saying, they were just booing him. And he stood through it all. Through all that adversity, that's leadership. He's a businessman. He doesn't gain any fame or wealth out of doing this. He wants to fix our state. So I'm telling the speaker, just like winning the midterms is not impossible, we can win the state as well. It takes common sense, and he's polling very well. If Chad Bianco steps out, then we have a real strong Republican. And look, Arnold Schwarzenegger became governor. There's a possibility that Steve can become governor. And so this state is pretty messed up. And I think all of us doing business here and living here, we pay into it every day. It's very, very hard to live here. When you look at Arizona and Florida and all the no or low state taxes, I mean, imagine our wealth in those states, right? So we live in the most beautiful state, but when it comes to business and the economics of our policies, it's really broken. So those are the things that I'm working on. It's an absolute honor to have all of you here. As many of you know, we hosted Impact in Washington. It was probably the most successful conference I've ever hosted, where we had leaders of the new frontier. We meet with policymakers. We had members of the cabinet, the speaker, Congress, Senate, all join us at the Hay Adams for 3 amazing days. And that new frontier is something that I'm working on that I'm excited to engage all of you with. I'd also like to thank Palmer Luckey for the Chili Willies that you guys will be having, our ice cream company. You're going to love it. I have my beef jerky here too. I love to promote my own products. It's the best beef jerky in the world, and I got all of you a packet, so be sure to take one home. And we also have Dan Olson of Hook Hand Rum. He's the founder of an incredible rum company that I've invested in. He's been so generous with his time. He's one of the greatest creative directors in the ad industry. We partnered up on this great rum company, and I'm so excited to support it. And of course, Wahoo's, I call it Wahoo's Gourmet. You know, Wing Lamb does this just for me. It's very special. To David and John, and thank you guys for all the times that you support us. If you didn't get dinner, they will feed you and take care of you. It's going to be awesome. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to my friend Matt to come talk a little bit about the donor side and the foundation side of Turning Point, and then he's going to introduce Justin, the COO of Turning Point. Matthew, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Sinan. That was pretty well said. Well done. Appreciate that. How's everybody doing? Good. Thank you for being here. Again, my name is Matt Shear. I've had the privilege of working with Justin and obviously Charlie at Turning Point USA for a while now, and so yeah, I'm going to speak for just a few minutes here about. I'm not sure what the knowledge base is here in terms of Turning Point, but there's 2 organizations under the Turning Point umbrella. We have our Turning Point USA nonprofit organization, which I'm going to speak on for a few minutes, and then I'll turn it over to Justin, and he will speak about Turning Point Action, our political arm. Sound good? Okay. Show of hands, I'm just curious, just so I know kind of where people are at. How many people were able to watch Erica Kirk address the nation a couple of days after Charlie's assassination? Okay. And how many folks were able to watch the memorial, Charlie's memorial, what was it, 9 days after? I'm still amazed that our team was able to put that event together in just 9 days. And 80,000 plus people at the stadium, another 100,000 people outside the stadium that we had to turn away. It was just the most powerful event, memorial experience that I've ever been a part of. But it's obviously been a few difficult months for us, to say the least, but I do want to bring you some hope and bring you some good news this evening, because what's resulted in the aftermath of Charlie's assassination has been nothing short of incredible. So I could talk to you for literally 3 hours. I'm not going to do that, so I'm just going to highlight a couple of, give you the 30,000 foot view on just a couple of key initiatives, and then I'll turn it over to Justin. So before Charlie's assassination, we had roughly 900 college chapters across the country and about 1,200 high school chapters. And a quick story about Charlie. So the last time that I was with him personally was about 3 weeks before the assassination. We were up in Aspen, Colorado. We were doing an investor retreat for some of our top supporters up there. And we had a team meeting, and Charlie, giving it not totally verbatim, but he basically told our team, he said, guys, I've been traveling the country. I've been on college campuses for over a decade. We've got a strong footprint on the college campuses. We're doing well there. We want to continue to get more college chapters, but our biggest growth area for us moving forward is going to be the high schools. And so there's roughly 23,000-ish, give or take, high schools in the country. And Charlie said, I want us to be in 20,000 of them. And so, as you can imagine, we were, a very aggressive thing to say, but that was always Charlie, 10x, go bigger, and go better. And so, it was a little startling to hear that at first, but of course, Charlie was always so prophetic in so many ways, and it rang true once more, because 3 weeks later, the assassination happened, and then within 2-3 weeks after the assassination, we had over 160,000 people, young people, raise their hands, and they said, hey, I want to put a Turning Point chapter on my high school campus. I want to put a Turning Point chapter on my college campus. 160,000 plus in just a couple of weeks. So the current numbers we're at about 1,400 college campuses and 3,300 plus high school campuses, and growing. We're still going through all the 160,000 plus applications, but we're super excited about that. And it's high praise, but I tell people Charlie was like the modern day. I like to think of him as like Rush Limbaugh infused with some Billy Graham in there for Gen Z, for the high school kids, the college kids, and the young adults of today. And so obviously, Charlie was kind of their mouthpiece and their spokesperson for that generation. And so we're really confident, and we really believe that, let's not stop with Gen Z. I don't know if you guys know this, but we're experiencing the largest generational shift since Woodstock right now. I mean, this is the most conservative generation of the last 50 years. So it's a great time to be hopeful in that way. And let's not just get Gen Z. The point is, let's go out and let's get those 20,000 high school chapters, and let's win the next generation after Gen Z, right? Let's turn this into a multi-generational impact. Does that make sense? Yes. Awesome. One other point I'll touch on. It's really warm back here. I'll take a step forward. Another point I wanted to mention is our Turning Point Faith department. So the growth there has been just incredible as well. So prior to Charlie's assassination, we had roughly 4,000 church partners across the country. And now we've more than doubled that. We're at 8,000 church partners now since the assassination. And I'll always remember hearing Charlie speak about this. I think it might have been his number one pet peeve more than anything, but he always, it drove him crazy, the lack of mobility within the church when it came to voting seasons. He always said, if the church just voted according to its values, we would never lose an election ever again. And so mobilizing the church was a really huge deal for him. And so as we move forward and work with these 8,000 plus church partners, there's a lot that we do with the churches, but just to highlight a couple things that we do. Number one is we really want to mobilize them. So we speak to the pastors and we tell them, hey, this is the education you can give to your congregation about how to register to vote, when to vote, where to go to vote, all of that. And then second, we have what are called pastor retreats across the country, where we'll get thousands of pastors that'll fly in for these retreats. And we'll give them some guidance, some mentorship, and some coaching on how to start speaking about these political issues from the pulpit. Because, I'm sure you would agree, lots changed in the last 10 years, lots changed even in the last 5 years, right? And so for many of them, they go to seminary and they're not really coached or mentored on how to speak about those issues. So that's something that Charlie was very passionate about as well, is to start giving them guidance and giving them confidence to start speaking about these issues from the pulpit, because this isn't really a left versus right thing anymore. It's really starting to become more of a good versus evil thing. And so that's a really important piece as well. So before I bring up Justin in a second, I'm going to give a couple quick plugs as well, and then I'll step away here. We have our Spring Investor Retreat that's happening March 12th through the 15th. It's at the Phoenician in Scottsdale, Arizona. If you'd like to, this is just a small taste tonight, but if you'd like to hear from Erica, if you'd like to hear from Justin and our other leadership at Turning Point, it's a phenomenal weekend. It's a great way to really get the nuts and bolts and the details of every last Turning Point initiative and just all the work that we're doing. We're also going to be hosting some intimate retreats at our headquarters, so you can come by to the headquarters, get a tour, see the beginnings of a memorial that we're working on for Charlie as well. So that's just a great way to fully kind of immerse yourself into everything Turning Point. And I've left my business cards out there as well. We'd love to bring you further into the fold and bring you into the Turning Point family. I'd be honored to serve as your point of contact. And there's just so much going on. We remain at kind of the tip of the spear of the culture war and the spiritual war that's happening today. And so we can't accomplish all that we're doing without supporters like you. So I'd love to stay in touch. Please email me, text me, call me, and would love to speak with each and every one of you after this evening. All right? Thanks. Guys, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Get it over to Justin.
So it was 6 days. He said 9 days that we planned the memorial. It was actually 6 days, but it was crazy. Did you guys hear the backstory on how we ended up at the stadium? No. I'll mention it. It's been very, very seldomly mentioned, but basically we were going to host it at the, what was it called? The Desert Diamond Arena, and which is the arena, if you watch the RFK event where Trump and they have the fireworks and all that, if you remember that, that was actually a Turning Point event. People don't realize it, but it was ours. But we were going to host it at the arena because everything else is full. And we called President Trump and said it was at the arena. And he said, no, that's not big enough for Charlie. And he called the State Farm Stadium, which holds 72,000 people, and up from 18,000 at the arena, and called them. They had an RV convention happening that weekend, and they decided to move it for Charlie. And so it was, obviously we wish Charlie was here, but that was truly a honor to host such an event for such an amazing man. And it was the event that Charlie would have wanted, which was the largest evangelism event in history. And the stats are staggering, honestly. In the 2 weeks following, over 110 million people had watched content from that. And I was watching on Fox News, I don't know, it's like a month ago, and they brought on a social media expert who kind of was trying to extrapolate how many people across the world had actually been influenced by that memorial. And they estimated about 1 billion people on the planet have seen content from that memorial. So if you're a believer in Christ, that message was brought to 1 billion people across the country. So pretty amazing. So obviously, we wish Charlie was here, but we're honored to be continuing his work. Yep. And so I want to talk about Turning Point Action. I'm the COO at Turning Point USA, but Tyler Boyer had to be out of town. I think he's in Montana.
Is that where he ended up?
It's somewhere. I don't know where he is, but he had to go. So I'm also involved in Turning Point Action, but he's the COO there. So hopefully you get to meet him, or you should come to our investor retreat or come to Phoenix, and you get to meet him, and he can give you a lot more detail. So everything Matt just talked about is a 501c3. We're going to be IRS, compliant here. That's all nonprofit. It's educational, tax deductible. Everything I'm going to talk about is Turning Point Action, a 501c4. It can get political. The gifts are not tax deductible, but that allows us to get political in many ways. So that's what I'm going to talk about. Matt did a little survey, so I'm going to do a survey. Have any of you ever given to a politician or a campaign or a PAC and felt like your money was maybe a little bit wasted? Okay, I see most hands going up. Okay, that's because no one else is playing Moneyball. And you guys have all seen the term, or you've seen the movie Moneyball. This is something that Tyler and Charlie really have perfected, and we've kind of charted a new course that no one else has in the political space. And what I mean by that is everyone continues to focus on the same 10 to 15 states, pouring money into states that we're not going to win, pouring money into races that we're not going to win. And our view is that doesn't make any sense. And so we kind of went out of our way to upend it. We started Turning Point Action in 2019, but in 2024 is where we really took off. And we did focus on 10 states. We really primarily focused on 3 or 4, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona. Those were big ones for us, and we had massive impact. And so 2024, I can go into all these details and all these numbers. That was kind of our proof. That was kind of our test program, and it worked fantastically. And as just one example, we had over 1,000 ballot chasers in the state of Arizona, and that was the best performing state for President Trump in 2024. And that is where we poured all of our energy into it, because if he lost Arizona, it was done. Everything in November 24 was going to be done. So poured a lot into that state, and it was the best performing state for Trump. So what we did was we've taken that model, and now we're applying it on a much bigger scale for 2026 and 2028. And so the money ball is this. Look, all states are great. They're amazing, but we're not going to win California in 26. We're not going to win in 28. That's just the reality, and we can go down the line of several other states. We can also sit here and say, yes, but Michigan is super important. We should put hundreds of millions of dollars in Michigan because we can win Michigan. And our response is, Michigan's a great state. We hope that we win it, but spending hundreds of millions of dollars in Michigan is a waste of time. And we can go to Pennsylvania, we can go to Wisconsin, we can go to a couple more states. They're not worth, I'm not trying to be mean, we should still play there. There are important congressional races and Senate races. But our view is, to play the money ball, you have to build, instead of fighting the blue wall that's always been out there, our goal is to create the red wall. And that's what we're trying to do. So the numbers, and you can go back and go on, the 270, whatever it is, 272, and all the maps, and you can do this yourself. You can fact check me. But in 2028, if we lose Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, we're down to 259 electoral votes. Not great. If we win Nevada, Arizona, and New Hampshire, we get 272 electoral votes and we win the presidency. So maybe you're thinking this like, New Hampshire, like, what are you talking about? And New Hampshire is very similar to Arizona in that it's a third in terms of voter registration, which I'll talk about that in a second because it's important. But it's basically roughly a third Democrat, third Republican, third independent. Most of those independents vote Republican, thankfully. And good news, New Hampshire is now, the Republicans in New Hampshire are far outpacing Democrats. So it's fantastic. I can pull up some of the stats I was saying before. Maine is in the same situation, far outpacing the Democrats in Maine for voter registration. But our goal is to focus on those 3 states, because if we lose the rest of them, and we're assuming that we're going to win North Carolina and Georgia, because we will, they're structurally Republican. But if we win those 3 states and lose the 3 big ones, the blue wall, we lose that, we still win. The Democrats are putting no money into New Hampshire. basically at all. And then we're going to repeat what we did in Arizona in 2028, which is just go all out. We had 1,000 ballot chasers. Look, we want like 2,000 ballot chasers there in 2028. We're going to probably have 700 just this year in an off cycle. So, and then New Hampshire, like I said, that's the critical one. It's 4 electoral votes. There's more registered Republicans than Democrats. The Republicans just don't show up. And so this is really, we have Moneyball when it comes to the states that we're focusing on, but then we have Moneyball in terms of the houses and the voters that we focus on. So the traditional model, the races and the people you've given to, they focus on just hit everybody, run a bunch of TV ads and we'll win. And that's generally not our view. Our view is we want high affinity, but low propensity to mid propensity voters. What does that mean? We want registered Republicans, people who have voted and voted Republican, but they only show up maybe every 2 or 3 out of 4 elections. They show up like, it's too much. Like, they're not like probably us in the room. We're going to every single election. We're going to the school boards. We're going to the ones not even in November. It doesn't matter. We're showing up at everything. There are a lot of people in this country that barely show up for presidential elections. And so our goal is to go to the houses and the voters who show up in 22, but not 24, not 26, but maybe they're going to show up in 28. We want to get those people because they're on our side. They're just not motivated. Nobody's going out there and saying, get in there. We can actually win if you do it. And we've been a little disenfranchised. A lot of this comes from 2020. A lot of Republican voters feel like the vote doesn't matter. What's the point in voting? We're trying to change that and say, no, your vote really does matter. And again, 2024, I think, showed us that a lot. So what we do, we don't do TV ads. We don't do any of that. We were talking about this earlier, if we go through, we're using AI, we have a large data team that combs through data directly from a Secretary of State to identify the registered Republican households. We're looking at how many elections they voted in, off-year elections, the presidential year elections. We're identifying the households that we go to. So, for example, I vote every single election. Nobody comes to my house in Arizona from Turning Point. They don't come to my house. What they're doing is going to my neighbor's house across the street, who I know only goes every other couple elections, or maybe only goes to presidential, but not midterms. Those are the houses that we're targeting. So forget TV ads for us, forget web ads, whatever. We need boots on the ground, knocking on doors, and the doors that actually matter. Not my door. My door doesn't matter. I'm voting. The doors in here probably don't matter. So we're very, very, very targeted. If you come into our office, really encourage you to come out to our headquarters. You will see maps, and you'll see the maps, and they're targeted by precinct and by street, and they can literally show you on their TV screen all the voters and all these precincts, and again, there'll be not this house, not this house, this house, this house, this house, registered Democrat, ignore that one, and keep going. We have it down to the household. And so no one else has this. I can show you videos and clips and testimonials from people who have gone to trainings with state parties or whoever else and other organizations, and then they come to ours and they say, I have never gotten this training, I've never gotten this data. Like, why isn't anyone going down to the household level? Why is the solution every single year spend $1 billion on TV? And so that's our Moneyball. It's the states. Those 3 states are what matter. The most. Obviously, we need to play still a little bit in the others. I want to win Michigan. We got to win Senate races. I'd love to win the governor's race in Maine. It's important. But it is really going to come down to, in 2028, Nevada, Arizona, and New Hampshire. Period. That's what it comes down to. And if we can do that, we start building the red wall. And now the Democrats are on defense instead of us having been in defense for the last however many decades. And so that's critically important. And then we also are focusing on voter registration. This is hugely important because young people, you were just talking about, this is the most conservative generation in history. It is, period, but they're not registering. So when you go to a Turning Point event, if it's a TPUSA event, we have Turning Point Action there, and they're registering young people to vote. If it's a TPUSA Faith event, we have people that are registering, anyone who's there to vote. And we're doing this over and over and over, registering them to vote. It's not just registering them to vote, though. We're registering them, and then it is follow-up, 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 follow-up until Election Day. And by that follow-up, we go to our ballot chasers, the people who are knocking on doors. Most organizations are hiring those ballot chasers in, say, September, October, or voting month. Our ballot chasers, we already have 300 ballot chasers hired in the state of Arizona knocking on doors. I've brought up the reference, they're going to my neighbor's house because Julie is her name from Turning Point Action. She was hired about 2 weeks ago, and I saw her walk past my house and go to my neighbor's house literally over the weekend. And so we already have 300 in Arizona. We want to have about 700 this year. And the work that we're doing right now in the state of Arizona is critically important. Out of those 3 states, Nevada, Arizona, New Hampshire, Arizona is probably the most important. I can go, Tyler's way better talking about, there's a whole host of reasons, but you got to understand, if we lose Arizona, a ton of things start falling off because It's Congress, it's Senate, it's the president. There's a lot going on in Arizona. So even things down to businesses, energy, if you're not, like we're doing this whole thing, if you know what SRP is, it's an energy company out of Arizona. They have elections in April. People think it's a joke and it's stupid. It's probably one of the most important elections of the last decade in Arizona. And people are ignoring it. We're the only ones actually involved in it. But again, we're doing that early. We're doing these things now so we can knock on doors, get data, and so we're ready in the midterms. So again, Arizona, New Hampshire, and Nevada, we got to win in 26. There's a lot that we can do. I'm as hopeful as you are. And if you look at the New Hampshire and Maine data, that should give you a ton of hope. We can actually do this. But if we don't start making moves right now, everyone wants to wait until the presidential election, 28 is going to be a disaster. If you want JD to be president or whoever it is, they're not going to be president unless we win or at least lose by very, very, very little this year and make key investments in the 3 states that we're talking about. 28 will be an absolute disaster, and we can't let that happen, and it just shouldn't. So I'll leave it at that, and happy to talk about anything else. Yeah, thank you.
That's awesome. Justin flew in just for us tonight, so that means a lot to us, and we look forward to continuing our support.
Yeah.
Before I ask a couple questions, and I want all of you to think of a question to ask either Matthew or Justin, I'm going to play a video for you, so if you could just spend like 3 minutes paying attention to this, we'll get into the Q&A, and then we'll wrap up from there. Jose, go ahead.
We're active in about 15 campuses, and we're growing very, very quickly. And keep in mind, this is not just a flash in the pan movement. We're going to become an institution to give them the power and the confidence to stand up and let their voice be heard.
I started this organization when I was 18 years old. I decided not to go to college. I didn't get in my dream school, which was the United States Military Academy at West Point. I have this idea to galvanize and motivate the future youth of this country around a core set of ideas, not just political parties or politicians. And the ideas are really America's the greatest country in the history of the world. The Constitution is the greatest political document ever written, and free enterprise is the most assured way to lift people out of poverty and create prosperity for all. Those are the 3 big ideas. And I think that's something that can win.
We as Christians are called to go into the public arena to correct error with truth. So I go to college campuses and there's a lot of error. We're all sinners. We all live in error. I'm far more interested in what God wants of me than what I want from God.
I have to say this without getting emotional, but I'm very proud of my husband. And I know many of you are too. You have worked so hard. And I know a lot of you have seen, obviously, his videos on TikTok and all the stuff he does on campus. But no one gets to see him from my angle except for myself and our children. And the sacrifices that he made this year, he's amazing. I'm very blessed.
And I would not have been able to do any of it without Erica. And that's the real truth. I'll tell you what. You are here as a grassroots response to the top-down revolution happening in this country. I want our Turning Point USA students to receive a round of applause. These are the freedom fighters of America.
The media said that Turning Point could never run a ground game. They weren't experienced. They didn't know Charlie, right?
This is the greatest generational realignment since Woodstock. This generation is the most conservative generation that we have seen in well over 50 years, and the numbers show it. What young people especially are screaming at is they say, give me a structure that I can live my life by. And especially with young men, more challenging of them, more saying, you know what, honestly, I'm not gonna talk down to you. Stop being a boy and become a man. You wanna learn what that means? Come to church and I'll tell you what it means to become a man. Because we have the greatest story ever told. What can I do to save the country? You answer that question every single day because you are doing the work to save this beautiful republic. You are doing something that is bigger than you.
If everything completely goes away, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for courage for my faith. That would be the most important thing. Most important thing is my faith in my life.
I'm sure that video touched a lot of you the way it touches me, and I think it's a generational thing. You know, when I was at AmFest, I was just moved. You know, I had little babies there and grandmothers there. We're all part of a team. It's an amazing movement. You know, when you have God, you have faith, you have conservative movement, you have youth and the next generation. What greater thing to be part of than that? I have a few questions for these gentlemen, so why don't you guys come back over here? I'll just let either one of you take it, and there's been some current affairs this week, big announcements by Turning Point, so I'm excited to pick your brain on that. I won't say Super Bowl has something to do with it, but okay, so first question, are we actually winning the culture war with Gen Z, or are we just louder than the other side right now?
Mm-hmm. No, we are winning. And if you look at just, first of all, if you just see what's happening on campus, the momentum that we've seen just since Charlie started going on campus, it was just a folding table with a few people around. It wasn't a lot. And the momentum building around that, we are actually winning it. It's not just louder. There are more people showing up. If we weren't winning it, we'd have the same crowds, all that kind of stuff. If you look at AmFest, just the energy there. Look, I think we are also louder, just to be clear. I think we are louder, but I think the movement is growing as well. And if you look at any of the statistics, you mentioned it, it's the most conservative generation ever. More men are going to church, shockingly, than women right now. If you look at these metrics, you look at men and women, this is part of the problem that Charlie was hoping to solve, and the hope is Erica can solve it. Men and women have actually flipped on a lot of these metrics. We've kind of, in many ways, solved the young men problem, and there's actually a young woman problem. There's a New York Times article, if you want it, I can send it, you can share with everyone. There's this whole grid about priorities for young men and young women. And if you look at it, young men used to be, what do I care about? Job, money, whatever. And those were number one and number two and number three, whatever. And then they were family, kids, faith, all at the bottom of the list. And then you inverse that for women. It's actually completely flipped in the last several years. Women, number one is jobs, money, career, and women, children, family are actually down like 7, 8, 9 down there. And men, number one, number two, number three is like having kids, starting a family. Interestingly, it was have kids and start a family in that order, which was not great. But, or get married, it was have kids, get married. But no, if you look at the underlying metrics, it is actually getting much more conservative. We'll send you data after. If you look at college campuses, the swings from 2016 and 2020 to 2024, we're talking about 10 double-digit, 10-plus swings at lefty campuses. Yale, Penn, University of Madison, Wisconsin.
Along those lines, what does the left understand about building long-term power that conservatives still underestimate?
Yeah, I think what I just talked about is what the left has been good at and the best at. We all made fun of Barack Obama, right, in 2008, where he said, oh, he's a community organizer, ha, 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 stupid. Okay, well, that's how they won. And that's how they won consistently for decades, and that's how they won for several more years. This is the model that we're taking on at Turning Point Action. We don't call our people community organizers, but that's essentially what they are. They are knocking on doors, talking about everyday issues with everyday households, and they are community organizers. So they are still way better at this than us. And just one reference point, in 2020, the Republicans had 0 ballot chasers in the state of Arizona. Right. The Democrats had over 2,000. So that's where we were still outnumbered in 2024. They had more than us. We had almost 1,000. So we were outnumbered. But we're picking up on the game now. So no, they have been structurally better than us, but that is changing.
And it seems like on the right, MAGA seemed like a huge movement through the last presidential. Was that just a moment in time, or in your perspective, is that the permanent center of gravity for the Republican Party?
Go ahead if you want. Yeah.
You're on a roll, Judge.
You're cooking right now.
If you talk to young people, I think there are a lot of older folks that are kind of like, okay, I'm not, like you said, like I'm not ultra MAGA or whatever. There are a lot of folks that are not ultra MAGA. Charlie would give me a hard time all the time, and I knew Charlie for 10 and a half years, and because I was much more of the libertarian, that was who I was deep down. But the reality is a lot of people said, hey, but we got to win, so it's Trump or whatever. If you look, going back to the first question, look at young people, they're more MAGA than like actual hardcore MAGA people. And so that's what's pretty amazing. So I think it's kind of here to stay a little bit. And I think JD is, it might not have the flair that President Trump brings to it. But I think that it's here to stay.
And just to second a couple of your points, I mean, again, a lot of what we're doing that seems so groundbreaking, it's not rocket science. Like, we're literally just taking what the left has done so well and adding that to the right, because it just hasn't existed on the right. So that's a big piece of this. And you said it well. Yeah, we firmly believe that, Charlie came to save the young men, and now Erica's coming to save the young women. Yeah. And it's, it was a little bit easier of a pitch to the young men when all they hear from the left is toxic masculinity, you know, and how toxic
they were kind of primed for it.
Yeah, they were primed for it. But but we've got a lot of work to do with the young women, and Erica's going to play a huge role. We've got our Women's Leadership Summit, which is a huge event that we do in June of every year as well. It's I think it's first weekend of June in Texas this year, so that continues to build as a huge event for us as well.
Great. A couple more questions, and I'll throw it out to everyone out here. So, what's the hard truth about American politics that you don't say publicly but feel comfortable sharing at the table?
That's a good one. I want to think on that one a little bit. I don't know if I want to say.
I would, you're being recorded.
I would say
exactly.
zero cameras here. I would go back to what I would say I'm not calling out any race or any whatever entity on the right. There is a generational, multi-decade problem on the right, which is what I was talking about, which is this is how we always do it. Pay the consultants because the consultants get a ton of money when they get their 20 to 30% media buys. Like that's been the thing. So when somebody's running or whatever it is, it's like, hey, TV. And honestly, that just doesn't win the races. And the left has known that. And so, but it's one of these things that no one really wants to talk about because it kind of disrupts the entire political system. Because our view is this: I want to spend like $20 million in the state of New Hampshire. And what I just laid out is all about $65 million winning those 3 states through Turning Point Action, our budget. But some people will come in here and tell you, but we need to spend $250 million on Michigan. It's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. But the problem is that doesn't make money for everybody. So they want to spend $250 because it's there. They don't want to spend $20 million in New Hampshire because it's like, well.
And what are the priorities for Turning Point, just overall, the umbrella, in the next 3 to 6 months, and then looking out 2 to 4 years?
Yeah.
Talk nonprofit first.
Just the whole thing.
Yeah, I think again, the high school's number 1, the church is number 2. Those are our biggest areas for growth. And as we get the voter registration piece going as well, it's all designed that they all kind of funnel into the voter registration piece. So we have these 1,400 colleges and 3,300 high school chapters. We have the 8,000 church partners. Just everything that we do, the events where we sign up people to register, it all kind of goes into the voter reg piece. So I think I'm as bold to say I think this is the most successful conservative youth organization in the history of the country. So we're doing a lot right, but we got to continue. I mean, this guy's the hardest working guy that I know. Like, and the leadership from Charlie emanates down to the rest of the organization. And so we're just build, go. Like we don't stop, and we have to keep that mentality, even though our founder is no longer with us. Like we have his DNA. You know, we got to keep that going. So.
Yeah, and California is one of the most vulnerable states with voter ID, and we just hosted, and Lance and Tim, you guys were very supportive. We raised over $200,000 in one seat at dinner to get this on the ballot in California. Just legalize voting. You know, I don't care if Democrats or Republicans would. Well, technically I do, but just get it legal, right? So at least we have fair voting in the state. I mean, it's just mind-blowing that we have to go through all this. But thank you to Tim and Lance for your generosity and all of you that contribute to that fundraiser. And now we gained the signatures so we can get it on the ballot. And it's trending very well both with Democrats and Republicans. So that should hopefully pass in November. Final question, 2 final questions. Last week, Erica Kirk pledged Turning Point will match $1,000 to the government deposits in the Trump accounts for employees' children. Can you tell us a little bit about that? That's amazing.
Yeah, it was my idea. Because to be honest, I had not heard about the Trump accounts, and then I heard they were doing this big thing on the 28th, I guess it was, right, last week in D.C. at the Mellon Auditorium. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. What are the Trump accounts? Like, they're literally called Trump accounts. They're 503A accounts, but they literally are called Trump accounts. And if you don't know, it's just a pilot program started January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2028. Hopefully it continues, depending on income levels, whatever. They'll deposit up to $1,000 into a newborn, into account for a newborn, really investing in the future of the country. And so Charlie and Erica, but it was really in memory of Charlie. Charlie loved families. I worked with Charlie every single day for the last 6 years, and he loved families. And every time I came in, I'd say, so-and-so's having a baby, or so-and-so's having a baby. That was like, he could be having the worst day that he's ever had. And it's like, our CMO, she's actually literally had her baby last week, Marina, when she told Charlie that she was having a baby, it was like the happiest day, that he's had in a year. And he just was so excited about babies and families, and we encourage our staff to have babies and grow families. And so it was just in memory of Charlie of, we want to encourage this even more and invest in our employees and invest in their kids' future. So yes, we are matching up to $1,000 per newborn during those 4 years, and we hope the program continues.
That's awesome. Well, this Sunday, the Patriots are taking on the Seahawks. Okay, I won't say whose side are you on. Okay, it's like 2 parties. but it has been announced that Turning Point is putting on their own halftime show. Okay? Wow. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And then I'm going to turn it over for our audience to ask some questions.
Yes, it's called the All-American Halftime Show. You know, in true Charlie fashion, there was one of these things where we just, you know, if we were rewind, now it's going to turn out great on Sunday. It's going to be amazing. But if you rewind, it was all this chatter online. And internally, we were just like, oh man, this is a lift. Like, we want to do a halftime show. We want to do this. This is going to be a massive lift. Nobody's ever tried to do this. And then we just finally, kind of, Eric and I were sitting there like, what do we, like, Charlie would have announced this already. Yeah. Right. Charlie was very much announced it, and we'll figure all the details out later. Yep. And so we announced it, and we've figured out all the details. It's going to be awesome. I can't really tell you much, but it's going to be amazing. You absolutely should tune in. It's a great performance. It's just, you know, about faith, family, freedom. There's a beautiful little dedication to Charlie in it. And
your kids can watch?
Your kids can watch it. You've seen the announcement. It's Kid Rock.
Brantley Gilbert,
Lee Bryce, and Gabby Bear. Yes, Kid Rock. I think he went on. It said this on TV, so I'll say Kid Rock is peak Kid Rock, but then he does a complete 180, and it's just this beautiful moment with him, and it's really amazing. But there is a peak Kid Rock, you know, in it. But then if you listen to any of his music, it's peak him, and then just total 180 that will probably bring many of you to tears, honestly. And
looking forward to that.
Yeah, you probably never thought Kid Rock would bring you to tears, but he will on Sunday. So it's gonna be great.
I'll turn it over to the audience. If someone can just raise your hand, who you are and what your question is, be as loud as possible. Go ahead.
Yeah, Tim Shank. Could you guys give us either the mission statement or the operations, I guess, of the high school and college clubs, I guess?
Yeah.
Yeah, like what do they do on a week? Yeah, so they meet on a weekly basis, and the purpose is twofold. It's education and activism. So they'll have a weekly meeting. There'll be a different discussion topic. We've got a lot of the content that we've created from ourselves, but then we'll also pull from outside resources like Hillsdale College or PragerU or you name it, because the reality is they're getting the opposite message in their high school classes and their college classes, right? So we want to give them a little bit of the dose of reality, a dose of truth. And so, you know, one week it might be about free markets and entrepreneurship, and the next week it might be more of a social issue like the pro-life, pro-choice debate, right? So there's the education piece, and then they'll dialogue and they'll have discussion, and then the advocacy piece is, you know, whenever there's an election season, you know, they'll table on campus and they'll educate their peers of how to register to vote, where they can go to vote, how to do all the voting process, and if they feel so bold and so courageous, they can also have that civil dialogue and discourse that Charlie was so well known for. And then obviously the bonus is the communal aspect, right? Because especially if you're on a college campus these days, and if you're a conservative, you're definitely in the minority. I feel, most of the time. So it's a good place for like-minded, like-valued, young people to get together and have a community.
I'll say one quick thing. Charlie would always say, and I hammer it really with a lot of our staff, is chapters for chapter's sake is completely pointless. And I would apply that to our faith partnerships. I would apply that to AmFest. AmFest, for the sake of hosting AmFest, is a complete waste of time and money and energy. Those are just kind of vehicles to getting to voter registration, to getting to activism. So we take our chapters and it's like, great, they have a chapter meeting, and that's important because it brings community. But if they're not actually out there doing something when it matters, whether it's showing up at a school board meeting or knocking on doors or bringing more students over to their meeting, then it's pointless. But that's why we have these chapters and partnerships, is to actually do activism. It's all pointed towards that.
Any questions? Yes, go ahead. And by the way, this is Jim Desmond, who's running for Mike Levin's seat here for Congress. We're very excited to have you here. Jim, Honorable Desmond, who's a Board of Supervisors in San Diego as well. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jim Desmond.
And a pilot.
Just keep going.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of disappointing that Turning Point isn't focusing on California, because there's still some great people here, and Ken Calvert and Delisa, myself, and others running, and we get it. I get it as far as investment and things like that go. But this room just kind of shows you there's still groups of us that want to do the right thing. So I guess I got two questions. The first is, how do you get the halftime show? Where do you go up for that? And then secondly, how did Mandama get elected if we got Gen Z going the other direction?
Well, I mean, New York is just a lost cause. That's how you get money. No, but Charlie talked about this, and there's a video out there that maybe we can share as well with the group. Charlie talked about this a little bit, and this was his biggest fear. And to be honest, he was talking about this the most. This was him and me just strategizing internally. This was his next big project. Was, okay, we got young men, yes, young women, but it was really trying to fix a lot of basic things in the economy, because young people can't buy a house, they can't afford groceries, all these things. He was trying to really work with the administration and others on fixing these fundamental things in the economy, because that's why you get a mandami, because you have basically no one under the age of 30 who can afford a down payment on a house. And so what do you get then? Like, well, I got this guy over here willing to basically give me a house and free housing, or cap my rent, or whatever it might be. And so there is a problem there with inflation, and a lot of this is due to the Biden years with inflation and other things that really kind of screwed the economy in a lot of ways, but it particularly screwed it for young people right out of college, tons of debt. The pay wasn't keeping up with inflation. They couldn't afford a down payment. They're just living rent, paycheck to paycheck. So that's a really mandami. And Charlie's fear was mandami effect was going to be kind of national. You saw it starting with AOC. It really started with Bernie, and then AOC, and then mandami. So
Some of my messaging is, we got to get this next generation has to be able to. They're cut out of the future economy.
Correct.
So one of the things we got to try to fix. So how do you get the halftime show? Is it on the internet? Or where?
So it's all yes. You'll find it ever on the internet. Like literally, if you you have YouTube on your TV, or if you have Daily Wire, there's a few others.
Yeah.
TBN. TBN's an actual just channel. If you have cable, you can go to it. But if you have Daily Wire, TBN, YouTube, Rumble, any of these channels on your TV, just literally flip over to that, and you'll find it. And then you can also, if you're just going to watch it on your phone, just go to any basic. You probably guessing what you guys look at Twitter and Instagram. You're
on social
going to see
media.
it pop
You'll
up almost immediately. But yeah, it'll be online. It's going to be an amazing show.
Daniel.
Dan Hendricks, I was retired from the Coast Guard. You guys have an initiative on maybe active duty young military members voting rights? Because I know when I was in the military being young, it was hard to vote when I was out of state. So are you guys focusing on any active duty?
So Turning Point Action has done a little bit, and Tyler could speak to this better. It is one of these little things that no one talks about, but when you're overseas, you can still vote, but there's a lot. Like Democrats have actually spent a lot of time on this and actually figuring out, because there's a whole process to get your ballot and all this kind of stuff to send it out to like Japan or wherever. And the Democrats have been perfect, like excellent at following up with active duty members and like, get your ballot, here's the process. And the right has not been great at that. So we do a little bit, it's not a ton, but we definitely do a little bit of, if you're conservative, you're on the right, and you're out of the country, then you really need to get your ballot sent to you, and there's a whole process. So we do a little bit.
I think maybe one or two more questions. Gorky, back there.
Oh, I'm just supporting him. But anyways, I'll ask anyways. You mentioned about the young generation not able to afford houses.
Yeah.
The down payment. Yeah. In Orange County, it's not 30, it's maybe 40 or more. And I worry about my daughter being able to afford here. So now I'm trying to save enough for her to be able to get there. Right? So that's what we're going to do here. So
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of macroeconomic factors, and much bigger than what we're talking about now with this all AI and all coming up and all that. So you guys, looking at all these aspects, what's your thoughts and what are you thinking about?
And all that. Well, I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, I'm deeply concerned. If you haven't seen the graduating class from May of 2025, that was the first year ever where more graduates were not able to get a job than get a job. That's the first time that's ever happened. And so it's a very, very huge problem. There's not a lot that we can do. We can train, we can talk to the students and get them energized. But this is a deep, serious policy issue in DC, getting inflation under control. I mean, it's a ton. I mean, we're going to have to navigate. I don't have answers for it. Navigate through AI. There's speculation that a lot of it, what I just talked about, was driven by inflation, but also driven by just AI replacing a lot of entry-level jobs. I don't have an answer for it. I mean, there's people way smarter than me in the business world and policy world that probably know, but that is going to be, it is a problem that's not going to end in the next 2 years, 3 years, in the Trump administration. It's going to take a while to figure out, but it is the Mandami effect. If this continues, all the gains that we've had over the last 10 years are going to be gone in the next 10 years if we don't figure this out.
I'm going to throw the last two questions. We'll go Lance Ware and then John Samuels. Go ahead.
Yes, Lance Ware. Real quick question observation, actually. I did make it to AmFest 2 years ago. Amazing. Recommend it to anybody on the road. Please do it. Take your kids if you can. But on the AI and the jobs and everything else, I think one of the things that maybe TP Faith could take up is this sense of purpose for men and women. And as you're on that hunt for the job, or your first job, your first career, or whatever, just making sure that there's some purpose in life. We're going to have to deal with that more and more as job replacement becomes a reality. You don't think maybe there's a guaranteed basic income, but I think that's something that should be thought through, explored, and just
Yeah, you probably saw it in the video where Charlie said, young men need purpose and young people need a purpose. And so great way to get that is go to church.
Yeah.
And so it was Charlie, we started TPUSA Faith in 2021, and that was largely in response to all the church shutdowns in 2020. And so we started TPUSA Faith in 21, and it has just gone bananas since then. And I think you mentioned it, we've doubled our pastor network in the last 4 months.
And another plug is something Erica was really passionate about. We have a faith tour happening this year. It's called Make Heaven Crowded, where I think we're in between 30 and 40 tour stops throughout 2026. And that's part of the message that we want to get out there, but that's something Erica was passionate about as well. And it's going to be a huge piece of this. Yep.
Last question, John. Go ahead.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for keeping up the fight. What is the call to action for all of us in this intimate group?
Yeah.
Ooh, where to begin? Keep talking to us. I want to stay in touch with each and every one of you. Obviously, we're the nonprofit, especially, and the political arm. Like, there's just so much need. We find ourselves at the tip of the spear of the culture war and of what we believe is a spiritual war happening in this country. And so we're positioned. Obviously, we're so grateful for Charlie, and he's helped to position us here where we are. And like, we have to continue to that was his line, 10x, right? He was always, we'd always ask Charlie, like, hey, what's next? He said 10x. Like, that was always his answer. So we have to continue to 10x everything that we do, and we're only able to do that with generous supporters, with financial donations, boots on the ground, with the ballot chasing, all of the above. So there is certainly a place for each and every one of you to partner with us and to get involved in some capacity. So I mean this, like, I would love every single person here tonight to reach out to me and let's have that conversation. So that would be the immediate call to action.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, with that, I present to you Justin and Matthew. If we could give them a round of applause.